Hello and welcome to AWS Security Live. My name's Rob Hale. I lead AWS's security partner business in Europe. We have an amazing show for you today. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, we're AWS Security Live. We're a live podcast, videocast show. Me and Brian are both here. And Brian, introduce yourself in a second. We are here from 8 o'clock a.m. in Pacific time. If you're joining us from the West Coast, if you're joining us from Europe, it's either 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, depending on which side of the channel you are. We talk about security use cases. We talk about how customers are solving challenges with security with AWS native tools, with our partners, and we have a lot of fun doing it. So welcome. As I said, my name's Rob, and I'm joined by my amazing co-host, who is from the other side of the world.
Wow, Rob, you said amazing. You can't take that back, buddy. It's on the internet. No takesies backsies. Hey, everybody. My name is Brian Mendenhall. I am the worldwide head of the Security and Identity Partner Specialist team at AWS. Longest title, and every year I get one more word.
That was impressive.
I think I'm due for another word. We gotta maybe on the show we can figure out Chief Amazing Person or something. We'll figure it out.
Some sort of acronym. But then our production team will throw something at us. So
100%.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. So we have a no acronym rule. We don't have an acronym swear jar. Actually, we need a virtual one. But we will, if we use an acronym, feel free to ping us in the chat. There's chats. We're in YouTube. We're also on Twitch. We're on LinkedIn. So come and talk to us. Ask us questions. We have an amazing guest. But back to the acronym swear jar. If we don't explain an acronym, and let's face it, we're in the security industry, so there's rather a lot of acronyms. If we don't explain it, ping us. We'll make Brian do a strange dance or put a weird hat on or something. But we'll explain the acronym. Keep us honest. We love feedback as well. So we'll also see, and I don't know which side of the screen this is showing, but somewhere in the bottom right or bottom left, you'll see an acronym alert. So if our production team is on ball, then they'll get there first. But let us know your questions. Who have we got on today, Brian?
So today we've got Paul from Sumo Logic. Super excited.
Cool. What does Sumo Logic do? Let's find out.
Folks.
Boom.
Hey, guys. I'm Paul Tobia. I'm a security product manager here at Sumo Logic. Been there for the last, coming up on 7 years or so.
Awesome. Great to have you with us. And I know Sumo Logic from a long time ago when I first joined AWS. I'm sure Brian does, but just for our audience, who are Sumo Logic? How do you help customers?
So Sumo Logic is a logs management platform. We're born in the cloud. We're a cloud natives solution, born and bred on AWS. So we provide lots of use cases around observability and security. My particular focus is on the security side. So we do logs management, SOAR capabilities, and SIM capabilities.
That's awesome. And we've already got some people in the chat. So we've got some folks from Alexandria in Egypt. I would love to go to Egypt. We're going to have to figure out some sort of justification for going to Egypt. We've also got folks from Michigan in the USA. So we have a truly global audience today. So what are we going to talk about?
Paul, so we were kind of connecting a little bit ahead of this call, and threat detection, incident response, observability across your security stuff, right? Can be in the cloud, it can be on premise, it can be like on your phone, it can be anywhere. Threat detection is not new per se in the cybersecurity world, but there are some new things in threat detection and security observability, right? And so what are some of those new things that you guys are seeing on your side of the fence?
Yeah, I've been a blue team guy my entire career. It's almost coming up on like 30 years now that I've been doing this, not just for Sumo, but been on the customer side as well. And I'm really excited of what's been happening in the last 5 or so years around detection engineering, right? Where there's a focus on how do we improve the capabilities of threat detection in the platforms that you're using, whether it's a SIM, log management, things things like that. So the focus around that detection engineering, and then specifically what I wanted to talk about with you guys today, is when you talk about detection as code. So that capability of when you're managing, so for an example, our cloud SIM has over 1,000 detections that are out of the box. That's a lot of things to manage, and we've got a detection engineering team, we call it Threat Labs. They're responsible for keeping all of those things up to date. So it's a relatively small team. They do 30 to 40 releases a year, and in order to manage that amount of information and to take all of the new things that are happening in the industry, all the new attacks, stuff like that, right, turning around stuff like tool shell, right, that we all learned about a couple weeks ago with SharePoint, to be able to turn that around quickly and to work collaboratively. The idea of taking all of those pieces, those rules in a SIM, and turning them into code and using everything that all of the developers out there have done. Which acronym did I do?
So we've got SIM. So actually, our
SIM.
production team are really slow
Yeah,
on that
security, information, and event management. Right. So this is a core product for threat detection and response. Finding the bad guys, taking in all of the logs and information that's being generated either in your services or your SIM or in the cloud, putting it into a singular system that takes all of that alert information and log information and synthesizes it, correlates it, prioritizes it, and provides it to your security operations team. Here's the 5 things you should really pay attention to today.
Rob, if you enunciate an acronym, is it still an acronym? Like, I don't know. I mean, I feel like you say SIM,
yes,
as long as you're not SIEM. Dang it.
Yeah. And
I'm fighting for you,
been in the
Paul.
security industry long enough. We know how long these acronyms can get, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
But actually, Sivaram in the chat suggests that the blue team is an acronym. I'm gonna disagree on that. So it's a term, not an acronym. But for those who don't know, blue team, it's the team who's defending an organization's infrastructure. So you also have red team as well, which is the opposite. So if you're in the offensive cybersecurity industry, you can perform penetration testing, trying to get into an environment, and that's the red team. So the old blue team, red team. There's probably a purple team in the middle of there.
Yep,
somewhere Brian knows all about this.
Yeah, purple, exactly, where you're doing both sides of it in an exercise. That's exactly right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So,
and then there's the green team, and no one knows what the green team does.
I was going to say, what does the green team
do? Right? Isn't that? Aren't they the money people? Is that the?
That's what they're the ones that write the checks for the other people. That's exactly it, Paul.
Awesome. Paul, you mentioned detection as code. That's really interesting. And when we talk about the cloud, we often talk about infrastructure as code. So are we seeing those two concepts come together? Are they linked?
Yeah, it's absolutely an extension of that. So when you're talking about having these large databases or these large frameworks of information that you've got that you need to manage. So I mentioned, with our cloud SIM, we have over 1,000 detection rules that are built into it right out of the box. In order to get the team to work on all of those rules, they need to have collaboration capabilities. They need to have capabilities for approval and change management, things like that. When you take a look at IT and technology in general, that's already kind of a solved problem. It's happened in the development side of things. So if you take those detections that you have or rules from a SIM standpoint, and you express those as code, and it can be very simple. It can be a JSON file, a YAML file, or something like that. But when you treat them as code, then you have this entire breadth of work and capabilities, services, procedures, and infrastructure that developers have developed over the last 30 years to manage these sorts of shared code bases. And so it's making use of those same technologies, of repositories, of that infrastructure as code capability for deployment, for management, for collaboration, for approvals. All of those things, you kind of get them automatically by taking it outside of the UI and putting it into a detections as code system.
That's really interesting. And that's something that, from a long time ago when I joined the industry. I'm not going to say how long. Brian knows. But when you deployed a sim, or even a kind of a SEM at that stage as well, you know, the thing that took the time and the effort and the cost wasn't necessarily the database or the storage. It was how do you get value from the whole stack by building that rule set, and then how do you keep that rule set current? You mentioned thousands of rules, and that was kind of almost the baseline of where people wanted to get to. But then, how do you go from there? How do you manage such a huge, complex rule set and keep it up to date?
Yeah, the one of the cores of detection as code is the concept of a repository. So if you're familiar with GitHub being the most popular technology of the repository that's there, and that provides you a place to put your information. In this case, it would be files. In our case specifically, and I'll probably touch on it a little bit more, we use Terraform. So you have configuration files that are placed into the repository, and then the repository becomes that central location where you manage all of that information. So each of your detection engineers that works on that information, they can make their own copies of it. They can create their own branches off of it and go do their own experiments with it without disrupting the production environment that you have. You can have two people working on the same thing at the same time, and they're not overriding each other and conflicting with each other, because when they're done with that and they've done their testing on their own branches, they put in what's called a pull request, which is a request to submit that information or submit those changes back to the main line or the main branch of the repository. And that's even fun that you can do things there, like have two people, right, have a separation of duties. So the person who submits the change to the detection capabilities can't be the same person that approves the change. So you've got at least another set of eyes looking at things before you roll something out to production.
So
That's
Paul,
really important.
super interesting, like timeline story. If we kind of like pull this apart just a little bit, right? Like Sumo Logic, born in the cloud, born in AWS, and like that's a hard plug for everybody watching for the AWS. I'm gonna like start selling my snake oil over here, but Sumo Logic, born in the cloud, using infrastructure as code to like deploy your goodies across the world. That leads into this concept of like, hey, what we do is also another layer up of code of what we're building and what we're writing. And then it's been, what are we at? We're at 13 minutes in the show, Paul. We haven't said it yet. AI, right? Like we've got to throw that one right into the mix, because now where we are seeing, and this is also kind of a question, we're seeing like threat detection capabilities with agentic AI taking action. With artificial intelligence, that wasn't a trigger. I got nervous now. Yeah, I said AI. I don't know if I need to like say that one. I'm so
we're
scared.
good. We will
We're
apply
good.
the mum test or the dad
Yes.
test. So yeah, if
The
your parents who may be like mine, quite elderly, understand the term, we're okay to use it.
We're okay. All right. They know who the robot overlords are. But the idea, Paul, that we're getting towards is threat detection with the ability to take like an automated or semi-automated response within your cloud infrastructure, right? And now if we're all speaking the same language of infrastructure as code, detections as code, and now responses as code, is that where we're going? Where like all of this comes together and it's all stitched together. We're all speaking the same language, rather than like Paul alluded to, or Rob alluded to earlier, of like, I've got a team of developers that are like writing in detection codes for when my checkpoint says this thing, do this thing, right? Like it's all kind of, is it coming together? Are we getting closer?
Yeah, I think this is definitely a step in that direction. Expressing your detection logic in a code format makes it much more palatable to an LLM. Right? People are seeing a lot of advantages, and this is a lot of the focus when people talk about the magic of LLMs and how awesome that they are. They're usually based off of code type things because it's a very structured language. It's a very declarative, very very understood kind of thing. So pointing your LLM at your rule set is one thing. Pointing your LLM at the code that represents your rule set is a whole other thing. And not even just from an AI or an LLM standpoint. If you take a look at our service, we've actually got another repository that we make publicly available called the Content Catalog. That's just a bunch of markdown files that kind of describe what all those 1,000+ detections do out there. All of that is done automated. So our detection engineers don't have to write up the documentation. Instead, they run a script against that repository that then generates the markdown files, which turns it from the code back into something human readable. So from that level, even that simple automation that's just basically a Python script on the back end, right, all the way up to those LLMs, by expressing your decision making, by expressing your detections in code, it not only helps your processes for the detection engineers, but it also helps, as you said, connect it into all of those other systems that are out there as well.
100%,
For those
Paul.
wondering if our production team haven't noticed yet, which I haven't seen a little pop up. So LLM is large language model. Our production
Good
team,
call.
they're there, but they're not quite fast enough. We've got some great people in the chat as well. So we've got some AWS community builders in the chat. So and I hope I'm going to say your name right. So Abdul Razak, thank you so much for joining us. It's great to have you here and working with AWS. We have Jibram saying he loves the AWS Security Live session format. So yeah, this is awesome. We love the feedback, guys. And if you have questions for myself, Brian, or Paul, please put them in the chat. So Brian, I interrupted you just as you were going to make an amazing point.
Oh my gosh, that's you're pumping this up way too much, Rob. We both
You've
know
now
I'm not
forgotten.
that interesting. But I think Paul, we're circling in on something really, really, really important, right? And our viewers from across the world, like Egypt, that is so cool. Like Rob said, I want to go to Egypt. But we've got engineers, we've got developers, we've got we've got SOC analysts, we've got content developers. If we've got some of those people on the show, Paul, we've got people whose day job is to create these detection rules. I would imagine if they're not playing of generative AI tool to help with their day job, that they start doing that, right? Like, how do we start to bring this together, Paul? What advice would you give them to say, there's this concept of detection as code, there's these repositories of like code-based rules, and then we've got generative AI. Where do we start? What do we do?
I think some of the interesting things and some of the stuff that we're doing internally at Sumo Logic is working on natural language processing. So natural language processing is not even necessarily prompt-based engineering, but it can also be taking things like a full threat intelligence report about the latest adversary campaign that's going on. Put that into an LLM, put that into your generative AI and say, write me some rules. And then go over them, because they're probably going to be wrong, but at least there's the potential that things will get started there. There's the potential that you can get, 50, 75% of the way there when you're looking at that information. That's a lot of where we're at Sumo Logic with generative AI, is working on natural language models, is working on getting towards that automation and getting towards the recommendation of the things. Definitely from a cybersecurity standpoint, we always have to show our work. We always have to make sure that we've got that chain of evidence, especially when you're getting into full-blown incident response modes and things like that. So throwing stuff into the magic box and getting wonderful outcomes may reduce your time that you're spending doing things, but it doesn't absolve you from requiring to show your work. So
Yeah.
having humans in the loop, having that the personnel, the analysts confirming the results that are coming out of it, right? Those things are critical to the workflow when you're going down those routes.
Yeah,
That's a really good point you made there around proving and showing you said showing the working. So I'd call that a deterministic response in terms of proving mathematically this is exactly what happened, or this is the path that an exploit could take, for example. That's super important when you're looking at how you both defend against an attack and also then investigating.
If I could just go off of that, Rob, you mentioned deterministic, right? Just to go back to the detection as code side of things, one of the awesome things that happens when you do set up detection as code, and specifically the way that we're doing it and exposing it to our customers, is through Terraform. Terraform is a deterministic language. So when you think about managing your detections outside of the UI, right, you're there in the UI, you've got your graphical, you've got your wizards, you're building your rules, which is great. But when you're trying to do it collaboratively, when you're trying to make changes in bulk that you're doing, things that you're doing programmatically, the advantage of using a declarative language like Terraform is that you just define what the end state should be, the configuration file. So you say, this is what I want the rule to look like. And you don't care what the current version of the rule is, or if the rule even exists or not in the system. You just say, this is what I want to have. And then the magic of Terraform is that because we've taken our rules and we've published them as Terraform resources, right, publicly available through HashiCorp and all that kind of stuff, then it understands, it says, it looks at the configuration file and says, okay, this is the state that you want to create. I'm going to go look at your production system and figure out this is the state that it is. Here's the changes that I need to make. Here's the API calls that I need to make those changes. But it does it all on the back end. You're just sitting there at the console and you're saying Terraform plan, and it goes and figures all that stuff out. And then you hit Terraform apply, and it goes and makes all those API calls, makes those changes for you. So that's one of the other big advantages of that detection as code capability, is being able to be declarative, being able to say, this is what I want it to look like, and not have to worry as much about what the current state is, or how you get to that declarative state.
That's such a great take, Paul. And I'm going to say it's a bit of a hot take too, because within cybersecurity, there's a kind of this background perception of like AI is going to take over all of our jobs, right? Cybersecurity shortage, skills gap, right? And like my kids will always say like skills issue. Like, you know, you're trying to do something, especially me on computer video games. I fail at everything. They're like skills issue. I'm like skills gap. Anyways, but the idea, there's kind of this thing of like tier one analysts can now, like, we can use AI for tier one investigations. And we start to see this gap of onboarding for cybersecurity professionals because of where that on-ramp is. But what we're seeing here is that when we move to declarative statements, it eases that on-ramp for cybersecurity professionals to say, as someone new to the industry, I want this outcome. And now it will build that whatever we need to deliver that outcome, rather than needing to know how the sausage is made. We can just say, I want this outcome. And the tools that we have in place now will help us to get there. So it's a little bit of an on-ramp for those cybersecurity professional jobs, right?
Yeah, it really does make sense that the marketing kind of follows the function, right? We talk about it within Sumo, and there's all sorts of fun, conversations around it. But most of the time when you're talking about an AI agent or an AI helper, right, you talk about a co-pilot. You're not talking about a pilot. Nobody's talking. Well, some people are talking about autonomous SOCs, but really it's that recommendation piece. So back when I was running a SOC back in the day, Security Operations Center.
We were talking about actual SOCs.
Yeah,
totally fair.
On the feet, yeah. Security Operations Center. So back when I was running a Security Operations Center, having the level 1 analyst having to dig into the entirety of a particular incident or a particular alert and spending the minutes to hours to drill down into that was time consuming, but they definitely learned a lot by doing that process, and they'd have to escalate to tier 2, things like that. If they have an AI co-pilot that's out there, if they have something that assists them and says, well, I think this looks like A, B, C, or D, and then have the analyst do that, right? Make it a multiple choice instead of an essay question. There's a lot of advantages to that, not just in terms of speed, but accuracy, things like that as well. So that onboarding and ramping part becomes faster. But I will say that one of the second order problems of getting into the Gen AI and stuff around that is, are you just teaching people to be prompt engineers, or are you teaching people to be security analysts? So.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And we spoke about this in our backstage area just before we started broadcasting around, you know, the challenge that we have in security around hiring and retaining operations staff. So, you know, it's difficult to hire, but it's also difficult to keep the staff. If you're training at level to be a tier one analyst, and you're absolutely these people are absolutely dealing and triaging with huge amounts of data. And so keeping those people in that role and making them effective is really difficult if you're just if you're using the human to do everything. So it's around augmenting those humans, making them good at what they're doing by adding context. So automation is kind of things where you've got a human in the loop. You can gain information from a model that might say, look, this is the event, this is the context, here's some other data. What do you want to do? How would you like to respond to that? And that's the kind of force multiplier. And Brian, you mentioned onboarding, those people really quickly. That's super important in a security operations center, because if you're not elevating those people, they're going to go and find another job. We're going to lose people out of security. They're going to burn out. So giving them the right tools helps them deal with the huge increase in volume that we see in terms of security events. So I think that's super important. That's going to lead me really quickly on to another area. And a lot of customers will say, well, look, we really struggle with security operations and with detection and response. We need a partner to kind of help us manage this whole process. So how do managed security service providers, so MSSPs, how do they fit in?
MSSPs are, in my experience, they're leading the charge, going back to our original topic around detections as code, because they work in bulk. So they've got anywhere from a small to hundreds of customers that they're managing across that. So they don't have time to log into everybody's individual SIM UIs. They need to make a change, and they need to distribute that change to 100 customers, in the next hour, when they're making changes to their detective systems. So also the interoperability, again, depending on MDR versus MSSPs, things like that, right? Are they dictating that a particular SIM is requirement, or are they relatively SIM agnostic? So even then, you've got an interoperability situation. So yes, you may have a detection in one thing, but how do you write that in Sumo rule language versus Google Chronicle versus, right, et cetera, et cetera. So Splunk and all of those sorts of things. So that interoperability and that level of scale is really where a lot of what we're focusing on, and a lot of our design partners, as we're rolling out these detection as code capabilities, right? We're working closely with our MDRs and MSSPs to get them up and running.
A little bit of a spoiler for Brian as well. If you are looking at increasing your capability to deal with security events, and you need a managed detection response partner or a managed security service partner, then we have a whole competency that was just updated. There's loads of different specializations as well. So if you're a modern computer containerized environment, then we have a whole team of specialized MSSP and MDR partners who can help you with that. And then we have amazing tools and partners like Sumo Logic who can help you build in-house as well. So
Awesome.
Paul, I just want to say thank you so much for your time. It's been absolutely amazing. Now, if our audience, our amazing audience, want to find out more, what can they do?
So we've been putting a little QR code up there. Hopefully you've caught that. That gets us off to our landing page of our partnership with AWS. So we're born in the cloud. We're built in the cloud. So it's very easy to set up, very easy to get a trial going, and we're in the AWS marketplace as well. So real easy to connect into with Sumo, get a demo, get a trial going. Super easy to do. Thank you, gentlemen.
Awesome. Paul, thank
Paul.
you so much. Thank you very much from our audience. We're Security Live, and we will see you again very shortly.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. This is Security Live, where we connect directly with AWS partners to talk about, hey, you guessed it, security. We're going to be bringing thought leadership, knowledge, stuff you've probably never heard or thought of on this show from security experts. My name is Brian Mendenhall. I am the worldwide head of security and identity partner specialist team at AWS, and I am joined by...
Hey everybody, welcome back to AWS Security Live. My name's Rob Hale. I lead AWS's security partner business in EMEA. So I direct strategy and try and join up the solutions that our amazing consultancy, ISVs, and MSSP partners. And I know we're going to get an acronym jump up in a second, but we help our customers solve for security challenges with partner solutions.
And Rob, I totally did this wrong. I owe you one. I meant to say I am joined by my amazing, benevolent, and wonderful partner, Rob Hale. Thank you so much, Rob. Rob, who do we have on the show today?
We have an amazing partner. So you may have heard of these guys. They are super exciting. So we have Amiram from Upwind. He's the co-founder and CEO. So Amiram, welcome.
Hello, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Oh, we're honoured to have you, and I love the background, by the way. And I know you were thinking, well, should we do it here or should we do it in the office? I think this is amazing. So slightly jealous. Talk to us about Upwind. What do you guys do? How are you helping customers?
All right, so Upwind with no acronyms starts in 3, 2, 1. So Upwind started a startup company. And we're in the cloud security space. And we're a cloud security platform, actually, with a very specific focus on building the entire security stack on top of runtime telemetry. We believe that everything that you do in security, from vulnerability management, identity security, configurations, and risk management in cloud, and threat detection and response, you can supercharge it if you have the right runtime telemetry. And our history is we're DevOps people. And as you know, runtime is an area that is owned and dominated by DevOps. And we're excited to bring this runtime knowledge, DevOps knowledge into the security space and help security team get to the future of security.
Awesome. So Upwinds, you guys are a startup. You're quite new to market. What's your background? How did you come to actually form Upwind?
So actually, it's a fun story. The story goes back about 11 years when I was a student for computer science, and I did a research about Spot instances, actually, AWS Spot instances. I was working during the days as head of DevOps in a company that moved to AWS from an on-premise data center, and I was studying during the nights and weekends as a student. And basically, we were trying to save costs in AWS, and a solution architect at AWS told me, try to use Spot instances, see what you can do. And then I decided not only to use it, but devote my research to use Spot instances. And people before that time used Spot instances just for testing environment, low-level environments, very like batch processing stuff, things that can, churn. And I said, what if we can predict with an algorithm for how long a Spot instance could live? Maybe we can orchestrate it in a way behind a load balancer or in a Kubernetes or an ECS environment and let it orchestrate itself so you can run mission critical applications on top of these very cheap compute. And from a project in college, it became a real startup called Spot.io. And we were helping thousands of companies and tens of thousands of DevOps people to use Spot instances. I was working really, really closely with AWS. And Upwind and Spot.io was acquired in 2020 by a company called NetApp. And then this is where like actually Upwind started, because our idea was we're serving DevOps people, and DevOps people care about infrastructure automation, monitoring, cost optimization, and then the next thing that they care about is security. DevOps people are part of security. Either in smaller companies, they run security, or in bigger companies, they're part of security, or they're providing help to security. And we had this idea to start like workforce security, and we actually wanted to like build it with NetApp, and then decided to actually start a company around it. And here we are today. Quick snapshot. It's over 250 employees in 2.5 years, raised about $200 million, growing at like, I think like the top 1% startups in terms of revenue, and operating, I think, in one of the largest and most interesting markets in today's world. So that's Upwind in a nutshell.
Awesome.
So Amiram, where most companies are starting in security and shifting left, you are starting in like DevSecOps and shifting right. Is that fair?
Correct. And I think it's
shift right. Just kidding.
Yeah. So, and I think, when we came in and tried to like use that term, that was like a little bit of like, a point of discussion. And that's exactly the main thing of the platform is how you can use runtime, which is something that comes from the right side, and bring it all the way to the left side. So now that you are doing stuff on the left side, it is aware, and it is less noisy, and it is more, I thought that was an acronym thing. So,
We're all on high alert for
web developer
acronyms.
fans in the audience. So.
That's great. So what does that all equate to, Amiram? Like you've got security, you've got the runtime environments. How is that different from what other companies are doing? And what is the product of when you put those two things together?
Yeah, so let's go back in time and see what happened in the last decade in security, and then see like why what we're doing is so unique. I think like big kudos to Palo Alto Networks for a decade ago they pioneered the cloud security market. They came in, they acquired a few startups, Evident.io and Redlock, and basically created the first like cloud security posture management, is known as CSPM, and basically started like innovating in cloud security, made the entire awareness in the market for the importance of security in cloud and how that should be done. And then I think like they kept acquiring companies, maybe it became slightly bigger, a little bit less intuitive to use. And then other companies came in the second wave and created this more like an agentless technology of cloud security. The agentless technology is great. And it's really focused on infrastructure and configuration, which is like the lower level areas, like infrastructure of AWS, not the app, and then the configuration, not the real time. And then when we looked at it, we said, these agentless companies, they're not touching the real time, they're not touching the runtime. And that's why there's like a cap of like the value that can be like generated from these tools. And we said, we have an opportunity to like go in a different approach. We call the agentless approach, we call it outside in, because you're basically scanning things from the outside to reveal problems in the inside. You're not running on the machine, so you're just scanning whatever you can with snapshots and things. But we have an opportunity to go from a configuration-centric approach, the outside in, into a usage-centric approach, which is inside out. So imagine you're on the workload, and you see the network traffic, and you see the data movements, and you see the network topology, and you see the APIs, and you see all of that. First of all, you're way more ready for 2020, like 2030, that everything is AI, everything is usage of agents, and you know what they do. And second, it opens you to a lot more use cases in like the network, the data movement, AI usage, and that's the whole foundational story of Upwind, is how can we use this inside-out approach and create much better usage-based risk, which is more accurate and more efficient.
That's interesting. So now we're not so much talking about traditional, which is crazy to even say this, traditional cloud security posture management, right? That wasn't even like a defined use case until a couple of years ago. And we're already moving past that into this next thing that says, what is actually happening with all of the bits and bobs in your cloud environment? What are the details of those from a security posture standpoint, right? And then we have that data. We've got this like landscape view of what's actually out there. What do we do? Then where do we go, and how do we approach what we are actually seeing in the wild?
That is correct. And think about it. It's not that crazy. In 2025, the tools that you chose 2 years ago are already legacy. It's not that crazy because technology is moving so fast. Things are changing so fast. You take a vacation, you come back, there's a new open source you never heard about, and you need to respond to, like MCP. Oh, it's a new thing. Right?
We got acronym. Where's the buzzer? I got one. I think I got one, Rob.
Sorry.
Everyone's on high alert. Sorry, like, my thing went off. My like internal dinger. MCP.
Model Context Protocol.
Thank you, Rob.
I think so.
Yes. Sorry, I interrupted you. I'm an absolute jerk.
Oh yeah. I thought like I'm going to be
continue.
punished for a few minutes. But what I'm saying, technology is moving so fast, and I think like it's really and a good timing right now to like have a better foundation of data that is more based on real time runtime that helps you power the next generation of the problems that you have in the cloud. We're seeing that data is becoming a big problem in the cloud, and AI is becoming a big problem in the cloud, and then applications usage is becoming a big problem in the cloud. And without runtime, you don't have a chance to deal with those problems. And now we can talk about different use cases of vulnerability management and risk management and threat detection and response and how runtime can power that. But I think like if you look at the next 5 years, runtime is the basic foundational telemetry that on top of that, you need to build use cases. Without that, it's going to be really hard.
And that's a really good way of explaining things. And when I talk to customers as well, particularly from when you're working for an organization, you're responsible for security, and the organization is migrating to the cloud. That's a huge change. But actually, what customers are looking at is not just the change they're currently going through. So not just if maybe they're doing a lift and shift migration because they have a data center closed down. That's not necessarily elevating the security to the stage you need to. The security organization needs to be enabling the business to modernize, to modernize their applications, move to containers, start to use services like AI or maybe even agentic AI, and enable that path. And so the more I talk to customers and the more we talk with partners, that's where they're looking. They're not looking at just what our current status is or our next step. They're looking at how do we help the business get to the next level. So you need to make sure that the tools you're using and the processes that you have and the training and enablement takes you to that point and beyond, not just to the end of your desk at the moment. And I think that's really important. And that's why the industry is moving so quickly, because those tools that just took you to an S3 and EC2 environment, maybe they aren't the right tools if you're going to a Kubernetes service, for example, or an EKS service on AWS, or even a completely serverless environment.
Yeah, and I want to suggest, based on what you said, I want to suggest two things. Like one is actual thing, and the second is sort of a semi-actual thing and a prediction for what's going to happen in the next 5 years. So 5 years ago, you would probably agree with me. SOC teams, security operations centers teams, and security engineers would choose different tools. There would be one tool for SOC for detection response, and then one tool for security engineers for security posture management. Mm-hmm. Now it's changing. We are seeing that in all of like the big POCs, trials we're running, like with customers, like the teams are coming to the same Zoom meetings, the same room, and choosing the platform together because the same context that powers your prioritization of risk, it's the same context that powers your detection and response, like across identities, across vulnerabilities, across actions in the systems, across data movement and all that stuff. So we're seeing that starting to happen. Like this is a de facto thing. SOC teams and security engineering are choosing the same cloud security platform. And that's why I think like CNAPP as like cloud native application protection platform is not only the present, but it's the future of cloud security. People will buy it in a platformized way. And then the second thing, when you look at detection and response, or a new term that's coming in the cloud called CDR or CADR, like cloud detection and response, cloud application detection and response, which is the new iteration or the new generation of detection and response as we know it. It's becoming smarter with higher expectations from the tools, because I feel in 2025, and especially in 2030, people should not be looking at events anymore, or should not even be looking at detections anymore. Like, if you're looking at events and detections and your team is spending hours finding something, you're already lost because you're already behind. And I think there is like a new construct coming in that is not events, not detections. It's a new construct called stories. And stories are LLM, large language models, generated narratives of summary of what happened in detections and events that a human can read and understand that out of 158 events and 36 detections, these 5 minor attacks happened. Like I saw initial access, I saw reconnaissance, I saw data exfiltration, and I saw like these other 3 things. And then this agent or this process of story will not only tell you what happened in a very human readable way, it will also suggest what you should do. Like based on that, you should do A, B, C. And now this is it's a completely different world than we know as today. We know like you have like your main database that you stream all the events. People are looking at it. Maybe you have good analytics, maybe not. Maybe you have a threat detection team, a threat hunting team. But this model has to break because of the technology that we have today, and because of like that we want save time for humans by having AI doing all of that for us.
So what I hear you saying, Amiram, super interesting, right? Is that traditional security as it stands today is siloed, right? If you're a CISO, you've got like your responsive security team over here. It's your security operations center, your SIM, security information event management, those tools, those people over here. You've got proactive security over here, which is like all of our proactive tools, which we've been talking about. And then they're all individual tools, individual people, individual groups. And what we're saying is they're all going to come together. And that this cloud native application protection platform the CNAPP is going to start to consolidate all of this into, like, dare I say, single pane of glass, right? But like this single interface that is going to do proactive, reactive, and our actions to shore up our security at the same time. Like that's the dream, right? That's actually all going to come together. That's incredible.
You've also got another element there, Brian, which is the DevOps people. We mentioned them at the start, but your DevOps, they're non-security people, but they're absolutely critical to security. So, if you're a security professional and you're looking at, vulnerabilities, you've got now a huge list of patches that you need to apply and mitigations you need to. Who's going to do that? Because it's not going to be the security team; it's going to be the developers. They're the only people who can realistically resolve those vulnerabilities for you. So they have to be involved in that, but also you need to be heading off a lot of that stuff. So if you're waiting for that huge stack of vulnerabilities and you're chasing that down and that's your metric, that's not going to be good reading in terms of security performance, because you're never going to be able to chase that number. You really need to be heading off those vulnerabilities and making sure that the DevOps team are making good quality code that has less vulnerabilities, less configuration errors in it. And then you're looking for those needle in the haystacks of those, rare events, and you're not trying to chase the number of and I'm going to say an acronym here because I've completely forgotten what it means, but CVSS results.
And building on that, Rob, that's exactly why I would take that single pane of glass into a single pane of context. Because when you have a single pane of context, when all the context is organized in one platform, context from data, vulnerabilities, usage, identities, then you can use that context everywhere you need. You can just in one click on every resource, you get all the context. It's very easy to make decisions. And then it's going cross-org. Developers can benefit from that. DevOps can benefit from that. Security can benefit from that, because that single pane of context is creating a new language in your company. And that new language is not something that is proprietary for security. It's not proprietary for DevOps. It's for everybody to make the right decision.
Yeah,
So
I think
now,
that's super important.
yeah, I
was-
agree.
yeah,
Go
I
ahead,
was going
Rob.
to say, we've talked a lot about, we've mentioned large language models and AI, to the biggest buzzwords around there. One of the other questions that customers always ask as well is, look, customers are starting to move AI into production workloads. We're starting to see that, at a much larger scale than ever before. And so the number one question from security practitioners is, look, how do we go about threat detection in an AI workload? What we hear a lot of buzz about, securing Gen AI, and whenever I talk to customers, I say, well, let's not look at it from how do we secure Gen AI? You need to do the basics first. How is looking at threat detection in AI workloads? How is that different, and what should people consider?
That's a great question. And I think the short answer is what we call layer 7. And the longer answer is, it's not enough to know and understand which service on your infrastructure is talking to OpenAI or to Claude or to an AI database on an AI service. You can basically paint a map based on DNS, based on different type of.
It's important to know, but
it's important to know.
Yeah.
But what you want to know is like, when I send data to OpenAI, what do I send? And is my data pattern changes over time? Do I send code information to OpenAI? Do I send financial information? Do I usually send like things that look like JSONs, and then now it's changing and now I'm sending images? So I think like security teams need to get into layer 7 when it comes to AI usage, and better understand not only whether there is use of AI, but what is the use of AI, and then basically create like the process internally to understand, when I see A talks to an AI service, I also know what should be in the tunnel. And if something changes in the tunnel, I need a smart system to alert me, and I need to verify that and see if that is an incident or that is an expected behavior.
That's kind of follows what when we talk to customers around security. It's also with AI workloads. It's going back to kind of threat modeling as well, in terms of how is your application, how should it be working? You talked about inputs and outputs there. So are you applying input validation? Is the model going to actually output something that you're expecting it to output? Or, for example, is it going to start to output code or other outputs that you don't want it to do? So I think that's super important to consider.
I agree. And overall, I believe that machines are super predictable. Humans are non-predictable. That's why when you see an AI usage in machines, like we believe in what we call the baseline technology, which is I see over like a course of X hours, this is the pattern or this is the API schema that you're sending between these two services. And now if a day after, 2 days after, this schema is changing or this pattern of data is changing, I want to know about it, because machines are very predictable. If something changes, I'm asking myself, did someone try to break the logic, or did we change the logic on purpose? And it's very easy to figure this out because you can tie it into your development pipelines and see if another version was deployed. It's actually very easy to connect the dots. And many times we found threats for our customers that their customers broke their logic unintentionally, and that was a threat, or intentionally, that was a threat. And I think like this is how we should be thinking about AI. It's a lot about baselining behaviors of agents, because agents would naturally do the same thing. And if they do something else, we'll have to inspect that behavior.
Yeah,
Super
quick plug
interesting.
actually for our if you're looking at scoping a generative AI model or an application that's using Gen AI, then check out the AWS Security Scoping Matrix for Gen AI. It's free. Google it. It gives you a really good basis for understanding the scope of security within your application, and you can start to look at where you need to apply the tools and the controls and the monitoring. So that's free. You can just download that from the AWS website. We mentioned AI, and Brian just had the latest kind of thing that's the next thing on everybody's tip of everybody's tongue. So I mentioned AI. I'm going to let you say the next buzzword, Brian.
The next buzzword. Which one's the next one? I'm afraid. I jumped on the last one, and I feel like I jumped on a grenade. So I'm Amiram, you get a pass from me for the rest of the show. All right, I've donated enough gold coins to the show with the buzzwords. But no, my question is as you're talking, super interesting concept. You know what we don't really talk about anymore is zero-day vulnerabilities and exploits, right? And that's an interesting concept because of the concept of attackers, like the bad guys, leveraging AI in the cyber kill chain, reconnaissance, exploitation, all of these things. So it feels to me like we should expect to see a massive hockey stick increase of 0 days out in the wild. And then, of course, exploitation, all the other things that comes along with it. But what you're saying, Amiram, is that is inherent. It's almost like Moore's law for cybersecurity. Like that is going to happen. We can't stop that. But when we look at the trends, we create baselines, and what is normal versus anomalous behavior, that almost becomes a moot point, right? It feels like we don't look so much at like what those vulnerabilities are as we do, is somebody exploiting it? That brings in the responsive piece. And then what do we do, and how long does it take to do something to shore it up? Like everybody's going to get hit. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that as an AWS employee. Everybody's going to get hit at some point. The question is, what are you going to do, and how long is it going to take you to find it, if at all?
I couldn't agree more. I think you've put a lot of the things we've discussed in the last 28 minutes into 30 seconds, very concisely, very precisely. I couldn't agree more. And I think like this is why it's really important to have a great foundation of security, because when you need it, it's just about like the mean time to response, the mean time to detect. And again, like to sum up from what I started, without the runtime telemetry sitting well in the security stack, we have no chance to understand AI threats. We have no chance to understand data threats. We have no chance to understand like complex threats. And I think it's wonderful to see the security community and how everyone is trying to solve it from different perspectives. And I'm just really excited to build for the next, years together with the community at AWS. So, and that was really, really fun. I know we're up time, but want to thank you for the great session.
I know it's been absolutely amazing having you talk to us and our audience as well. So, Amiram, if people want to find out more about Upwind, they want to find more about threat detection and CNAP and threat detection AI workloads, what should they do?
I think it's super easy to get a demo, 20 minutes demo from us. We'll explore the use case that every person has, and we'll give you a demo. There is also like demos on the website you can go and watch. I highly recommend we have a 20-minute, 10-minute chat. And then we know software has to be easy today. So it's pretty easy to get started with Upwind and scale. And I'm at Black Hat. So if anyone is at Vegas this week, let me know and ping me. I'm happy to meet all of you.
Awesome. Brian, are you at Black Hat?
I am. I sometimes wear a black hat, but this week I am at my house in San Diego. It's when you live in San Diego, it's hard to leave. I'll be honest.
We're all jealous.
But Yeah, like we have tons of people from our team at Black Hat. If you would like to connect with the security and identity partner specialist team while you're there, shoot me a message. LinkedIn me, send me a message. Like something smoke signals will connect. Plenty of time left, so absolutely. And Amiram, such a great conversation. If you're a viewer, if you're a listener, and you are looking to consolidate your security tooling, if you are looking to consolidate all the way from DevOps into threat detection, I mean, like everybody wants this. It sounds like this is a great opportunity for those things to happen. Amiram, thank you so much.
Up and
Thanks,
up.
guys. We'll see you again soon.